So this is pretty exciting because it's a little like meeting like the new neighbor. Like I'm the new kid that just moved into your town of podcasting or vlogging or like whatever we're calling this these days. Um, you're way more in your element than I am right now. But I feel like I'm getting the hang of it. So we've been kicking these off with introductions. That tactic hasn't blown up in our face yet. So tell all the kind humans of the web who you are and the laundry list of all that you do.
Sure. My name is Brian. Most people call me Sykes. I'm an artist and a musician and a podcaster living and working out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's the short list.
That definitely is the short list. I was expecting something much, much longer because it is. So, first off, thanks for taking the time and cheers to you for that, sir. Can't wait to have a drink with you in person again.
I agree, my friend. It's always a pleasure.
Um, so, I want to spend a significant amount of time talking about your podcast and the videos you've been posting.
Okay.
Um, but I would be remiss if I didn't get your take on what you think like the state of the music scene is now. I consider you someone who's constantly keeping his finger on the pulse of Pittsburgh's music scene. So, like, what do you see as the next steps and the obstacles facing the local music scene as far as like shows are going moving forward?
I think the biggest issue is that nobody in general really knows what's going on or has a total understanding. So when things start to come back and events are able to happen, there's going to be a big group of people that don't realize that it's okay to go outside, or maybe they're afraid to go outside, or they don't understand the protocol and the venues don't understand the protocols. So I think the biggest hurdle is just going to be having a clear sense of information that is evenly distributed amongst everyone so we can all have this understanding. There's already events that are scheduled in July, August, September, that, as far as I know, have not been canned yet locally. That are even Millville Music Fest in August is supposedly happening. They're
Oh, right
announcing
on.
bands. They started announcing bands yesterday, and that's a big thing. That's not like a small club thing. That's an all day outdoor festival, but they're convinced they're going to be able to do it in August. And I think they can do it. It's just a matter if people are actually going to be comfortable coming outside to be a part of that.
Yeah, it's like a Nick Fury type thing. Like until the world comes to an end, I'm gonna assume it's gonna continue to spin on.
Yeah, totally.
Um, I've been thinking about this like from a venue standpoint, because I really think that this is going to be a large obstacle in the business sense for local bands. Because of its correlation with time and the amount that we lost, I keep having a hard time not being focused on cost. Do you see venues being more picky about putting effort and staffing into local acts instead of being more laser focused on like the touring acts more likely to be like a sure thing for them monetarily?
Well, it depends. It's going to be a case by case scenario depending on the venue, because you think of a place like the Thunderbird and a place like the Roxy, same owners, two completely different operating things, like those different capacities, different scales of events that happen at both of those places. But, it's the same owner. So it would be I'd be curious just to ask him how he plans on, moving forward with both of those things, because it's going to be just drastically different depending on the location. And I think, moving forward, to answer your question, more of a focus on local bands and entertainment instead of focusing on out of town stuff. They may have to, because if there's certain bands that aren't able to travel between states depending on what state they live in, or depending what PA decides to ultimately do regarding interstate travel, there may not be a choice. Because if it's a thing where you're crossing state lines and you have to quarantine for a couple days or something before you go anywhere, that's going to make touring impossible unless you're like a huge act.
Right. That's actually interesting. I didn't really think about it, but it makes a lot of sense as you were saying it. Um, it actually could be a boom for people to get into local music, as far as like, there, that may be the only live music option we have, is our local artists.
Yeah,
So, which wouldn't be, I mean, to me, that would definitely not be a terrible thing. I'd love to, like, that would be kind of cool if like a city was like, for a couple months, we're just focusing local,
yeah,
and they would just like give all the love to locals. Like, that's actually a kind of cool concept that I've never thought of before.
yeah.
But I mean, I don't think that's ever going to happen, but that it's a cool concept.
It's definitely optimistic. I try not to be a pessimist, but being real about things, there's always been a huge local thing going on here, and people only go out of the house for stuff that they really, really want to do and things that they really care about. And if you combine that with the looming after effects of this pandemic, I think it's going to take a lot to get people just to go out of the house to see live music. For people like me and you that grew up listening to music and love music and have made music, it's different for us, but the average person isn't a musician. So getting them to go out of the house to see some bands in the post-apocalyptic, in air quotes, environment, it's going to take a lot. But the other thing too that I think is worth noting, and I kind of sound like a bit of a jag off, if you will, when I say this, but
Pittsburgh.
honestly, there's a lot of people that are worried about venues and opening up and only being able to operate at a certain capacity, like 20% capacity. And I'm like, 80% of local music shows typically run at 20% capacity anyways. So things aren't going to be all that different for the local music scene moving forward, as
I
long
was
as the
thinking
same
about
people come
that.
back out.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I was like, well, I mean, how many locals like truly sell out, like are a consistent sellout? So like,
Yeah.
social distancing by default may not be
Yeah.
difficult.
I'm pretty sure most of the shows I've played at the Smiling Moose have already been social distanced
Yeah, we're
with, like, the 30 people in that 150 cap room. Yeah. So on that scale, I'm not too worried about it. But obviously, from a business perspective, if you're in the position of somebody that has a ton of alcohol and food to sell in your business, and you can only you're cutting your staff down, or your staff down and your customers down, like that's going to be a huge hurdle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a part of my brain that goes, if the worst part of business comes out in these venues, then there's going to be like, this is going to be at the time that locals are going to need to be as innovative as they've ever been.
It's really a survival of the fittest thing right now. Another one of the I don't mean to be a pessimist, but things that I've been thinking about is I'm kind of looking forward to not seeing some of the crappier people that have been involved in, like, the local music scene or local business, people that didn't have it together and were hanging on by a thread. Like, those people aren't going to make the cut. And while I don't want to see anyone's livelihood go away, there are some people that just didn't care. So it's going to be nice to maybe not have those people that care. And when the music economy comes back, it's going to be kind of full of people that are really passionate and really want to do it. And the people that are coming out are going to be people that really want to see music. So that'll be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be really nice. It's like kind of like just a cleansing, a little
Yeah.
bit of a restart, a reboot.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Well, so let's get into start the beat with Sykes. Give me a nice high level view of what the podcast is to you and why you started it.
So Start the Beat is a podcast, as you've already mentioned, and I interview other artists, musicians, creatives, comedians, business owners. It's a good medley of people, usually Pittsburgh focused, but not exclusively. And, you just sit down. I have chats with other people that do creative things about, talk to them about why they do what they do, how they got started, how they navigate things. It's always different depending on the person, but it's really just a conversations, just figuring it out, it's almost as if, you sit down and you're having a drink with someone and you end up getting into this great conversation with someone. It's like that, but being recorded. So other people can kind of come in and listen to it. I started the podcast almost 6 years ago now at this
Really
point.
that long?
Yeah, I started it in 2014. So I guess it'd be next April would be 6 years or 5. I can't do math.
It's going to be really easy to remember when I started this.
So yeah, I started it basically just because I wanted to fill a niche that I thought was empty at the time in Pittsburgh. Nobody was really there wasn't a whole lot of people doing podcasts in general, at least compared to now.
Right.
In the Pittsburgh area, nobody was focusing on local music, and I knew a lot of people, so I, recorded a couple episodes, and then that turned into 10, and then 10 turned into 20, and then 50, and then, then all of a sudden I'm just going.
Right.
All these years later, I'm still doing it. So
yeah. So like that being said, like how have you seen it develop between day one and now?
It's been really cool. I've run the whole gamut from starting in a spare bedroom of an apartment to getting an actual studio space and decking the whole thing out, and going from, guests that were, just my friends to people that I had never met to people hitting me up to be on the show. So I've met a lot of people through the show. And the coolest thing that I think that I've learned is across all genres of music and across all walks of life, like people that are making music and people that are opening restaurants and people that are doing stand-up comedy, they all have the same problems because we're all human. So it's really cool to find that connectivity of what just brings us together as human beings through talking about what drives us as creators.
Yeah, this is our flaw, this mushy meat vehicle. We know this now. We're all inside because of a virus. This is the thing holding us back.
Totally. It's like, it's made me it's funny. I always said that it was kind of like my weekly therapy session, talking with other people for like the first couple years that I did it, because it's so easy as an artist to get this ego and think that you're the only person that has these problems and convince yourself that everything is so unique and nobody understands you. And then you talk to a couple hundred people over a couple years about their stuff and you realize, oh, we're all the same. We're all egotistical and narcissists and idiots. We're all just normal people. Like, we all need to get over ourselves. But it's really hard to put yourself into that perspective until you've like literally, I've recorded over 320 episodes at this time, and like every episode's over an hour long. So that's a lot of talking with a lot of people, and a lot of the episodes have the same sort of feel because people have the same issues. It's like, wow, it's made me see the world definitely a lot differently. It's given me empathy. I don't think I was very empathetic prior to the podcast. I was definitely a lot more selfish.
Right on. Well, so is that like that giant realization that you've had with, all those conversations with those people? Is that basically your favorite part of it? Like dawning on that, like, holy shit, we are super, super similar. Like all of us are really similar.
Totally. It's the best. And I think that it doesn't matter if I'm talking with, like someone on a tour bus at like some show, if like I'm talking to like a band from out of town, or if I'm talking to some 17-year-old kid with 50 Instagram followers, because I've done both. Like anybody that wants to talk, I'm happy to talk to. And it's just cool to have those connecting moments and just get to know different people and get to understand how human beings work. I feel like it's so much more important than anyone's art or what anyone has to say creatively. Just like connecting on some human shit. It's a lot more important in the bigger picture, I think. Just like focusing on being the best person you can be and not being so focused on just like art and creativity all the time.
Yeah. I mean, and I would say that there's actually a lot of that theme in what I want to talk to you about. We'll get there. I still want to talk to you about this though. Like, so
Cool.
from like booking guests or picking a topic all the way to having it ready to post, despite operating under your tagline, figuring this shit out one fucking episode at a time, do you have a pretty streamlined process that you solidified now?
Oh yeah, totally. I very rarely do any sort of preparation for episodes unless it's someone I don't know at all. But typically, most of the people that come on the show are people that I know in one way or another. So it's just, I will book the episode, we pick the time, we sit down, we do it. And then, I have a little Excel spreadsheet. Well, actually, it's Google Sheets. It's not Excel. It's like one of those things where like everything is now called Excel. Any
Yeah.
spreadsheet is called Excel. It's like Band-Aid.
Which is
But
funny because it's Google and searching is Googling, but they can't take that from Excel.
there you go. There you go. It's because they came first.
Yeah.
But I have my spreadsheet with guests that are upcoming, people that I want to reach out to, and like, our recording dates, and I always have it planned out when I'm going to release it. So little like organizational stuff in the background that's pretty streamlined. And then I just have my specific day that I edit episodes, and then my specific day that I upload episodes. For the past couple months, I was doing 3 episodes a week, and it was intense. So I've scaled that back, but now I'm doing 1 start to beat episode a week, and then 1 minute or less, and 1 headphone hideaway. So I'm technically still doing 3 uploads a week, but of like 3 different air quote shows. Decided to kind of like spread it out a bit. That was mainly because of the pandemic and us being all homebound. And I've done some episodes like we're doing right now through Zoom, but I don't want to be putting out 3 Zoom interviews a week. It's too much. So I've decided to diversify.
Right. I mean, I've done 3 a week already just doing this, and that's with having a bunch of extra time.
Yeah.
And that was rough. Like the turnaround was quick, you sit down doing the editing, encoding the file, the whole thing, writing the post, everything.
That's the stuff that takes the time, honestly.
Yeah.
Like uploading and getting everything done, like it takes so much more time than actually having the conversation.
100%. 100%. But yeah, so if you were doing 3 a week when like everything was normal, when like everybody's schedules were already packed, that's something. I would be over my head with that. I'm 100% still getting things sorted out. I mean, I proposed this idea to the guys like, and like 3 days later, I was interviewing Becca from Heart of Glass. So like, I'm not sure how much faster we could have rushed into something like this.
It's best just to, if you have an idea and the means to do it, just fucking do it. Don't dilly dally.
I'm actually very into that. Like your short game, be fast, but your long game, be like patient.
Yeah. I feel like the things that are worth doing, especially in terms of art or anything like creative, like a podcast or whatever, it's the stuff that you don't think about. You just move on it. Like you get an idea and you just fucking do it. And then, some stuff happens. You're like, oh shit, I'm doing this. And it's like, well, it was actually worth the effort, because we all have so much more time, regardless of how hectic your schedule is. There's always so much more time to do things than people realize that they have. I don't think people realize how much time they waste nowadays, especially with my cell phone isn't near me actually, but I was going to hold up my cell phone, but I'm pretty good about like leaving it places and
I got you.
And forgetting where it's at. Actually,
I'm terrible at that.
It's on the table back there. But yeah, those things are time sucks, man. Like that, like 5-10 minutes. It's like you go to. It's like it'll happen to me. I will like, oh, okay, I need to post a video on Instagram, and I'll open it up, and then there's like a couple notifications, and then 20 minutes later, I'm like, wait, why did I open my phone? Oh yeah, I had to post that thing. It's bad. It's bad. But if you take that time, if you just try to utilize that time, be more self-aware of what you're actually doing with your time, you can be a lot more productive.
Well, even though we're kind of ragging on phones right now, recently I've been very drawn to your 1 minute or less series, which I first stumbled on just randomly scrolling through Facebook. So props to phones for that one. Um, I believe I've seen them all. So I have my take on what your answer might be to this, but what brought you to create this series? Like, what is it to you?
So when I started it, it was actually 1 minute videos. It wasn't the title wasn't sarcastic when I started it. So it was just this idea of I wanted to just do like quick short content for Instagram. That was the idea. Uh and I did that, for a good bit. And then I started getting into a groove, and I started realizing that it was actually taking more time to edit an episode down to 1 minute instead of just talking for 4 minutes and then just uploading it. So I was like, whatever, we'll do that. And I'll just say a few minutes or less. And then I was like, fuck it. I'm still just going to call it 1 minute or less, but upload 10-minute videos because nothing matters. So it's either you get the joke or you don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they're great.
Thank you.
For me, it has like a very nostalgic vibe of what it's like to keep a diary or a journal. Um, and and I think we're in a time where like that's very worthy of documentation. Like, obviously, like we're doing it right now. I've started something in the middle of this because I think there's things that are worth documenting. Um, so like, yeah, some entries are heavy and like clearly deeper meanings to you. Others are just like wild card entries that are more like having fun with the process of maintaining that diary. But like this feels a lot like an authentically vulnerable and exposed side of Brian Howe.
I guess it is. I think that the authenticity is important. I'm 34 years old. I am well past the point of needing to impress anyone at this point. I've worked long and hard over my years to acquire the things that I want, build friendships and relationships and a home and all of that stuff. So now I'm just gonna have fun. Fuck it. I've made it this far being who I am. Why change now, right? So somebody said something to me recently out of nowhere, actually, in regards to my podcast, and it kind of helped me because the 1 minute or less thing I kind of abandoned. I started it up a couple years ago. I did some episodes, and then I just started focusing more on podcasts, and I kind of just let it go, because I felt like I should be doing more to highlight other people and not talking about myself so much all the time. But I decided to bring the 1 minute videos back because of the pandemic, as I already mentioned. But a couple weeks ago, well, probably a couple months ago now, because it was right before the pandemic, somebody was talking to me about my podcast. And I don't know why they said this, but they were like, don't forget that like you're the host of the podcast and people will listen to the podcast because of you, not because of who's on the show. I don't know why they it just came out of no. I was like, what? And it was kind of like an interesting, like, oh, I guess like that is kind of true because there are probably some people that are going to come in and, if I have, uh, you know, Prez's band on the show or something, people that are fans of Prez's band or friends with Prez and everybody else in that group, they're going to maybe come on and listen to that one episode. But the people that are coming back week after week are there because of me. And I try to keep my ego as low as possible, but I think that is something that is, I should realize that. So that was something that was a huge driver for doing those 1 minute or less videos. It's like, well, I can give a little bit more of me. I could be more vulnerable, as you said, or just be goofy, but do it in shorter snippets. It's not like me talking at the camera for an hour, like a full
Right.
podcast episode, just a little 5-10 minute thing and about something silly, and then you can go about your day.
Yeah, and it's not like you're grandstanding or anything like that, but it's very it's it's very raw and uncut. And well, I mean, it's definitely cut. You edit them down for sure, but the what you have to say is clearly not scripted.
Yeah, no, never. I don't ever script anything.
Well, with that all being said, I found some of the themes in the series so far to be substantial and important, especially right now. So, are you up for breaking them down a little deeper?
Yo, whatever you want to do, my friend, I'm here. I'm happy to talk.
All right. Well, so I actually have like somewhat lost track of some of the things that I've done and said. So do you remember what the first 1 minute or less video from like the pandemic was?
I believe the first one that I did in the pandemic was the something about like it's okay to not be productive. I think that may have been the first one that I did.
It was called I Am Freaking Out.
I think that was the second one. I think there was one that I did before that that was
Then
it's
maybe I
okay to not
watched
be
them out of order.
yeah,
But
but
anyways,
yeah, the I think that was the second one. The I'm freaking out and my brain is mush or something like that.
interesting. All right. Well, so I'm gonna have it. I'm gonna talk to you in the way that I viewed them. So,
Yeah, that's totally fine. That's cool.
uh, this is gonna be funny because it's gonna kind of now that I know that that's not the first video, it's kind of going to warp my foundation just a little bit, but not
Okay.
so terribly.
Okay.
Uh, but I was gonna say whether or not you meant it to be. I loved that video, at least to me, like because that was how I consumed it. Was the perfect first episode. The way I saw it, it was basically serving as like the series thesis, and it's been pretty consistent so far when you're just speaking your mind.
Sure.
Um, like like the themes that you touched on in there, I just thought were really strong. You said finding balance between the things you want and the things that are good for you, establishing patience, uh, exploring the concept of selfishness as it pertains to happiness. And like, so whether it's like a conscious focus or subconsciously, do these feel like pretty pivotal focuses for you right now?
Yeah, I think that they've been focuses for me for a while, like even before everything went down. And this was a lot of stuff that I had talked about on the show with various guests. And just moving forward, because now I'm trying to take a less is more approach to my life, which is pretty comical, I think, for most people looking on the outside in, because I'm probably outputting more content than I ever have before right now. But I think that at least internally in my head, it's not as noisy. Like I've found a way to be there, have less going on in my head and focus more. So it's like, there's very specific days where like today's the day that I do podcast stuff. Today's the day that I do psych stuff, and I can go down the line for everything there. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question clearly or not,
Yeah.
because there was kind of a lot in there. But yeah, in terms of just trying to figure out needs and wants and balancing all that stuff, I think it's a huge thing for me. And I see other people online and the stuff that they post, and it's just like, fuck, I wish that like it's like I understand what they're going through because I've been through the same thing, but it's so hard to find the words to articulate and tell somebody this, like what, like these feelings. It's hard to get it out. It's just like a light bulb that has to go off in your head, where it's like I simultaneously don't give a shit about anything anymore, but as a result, I care more about the things that actually matter.
I
It's
can't even say how much I agree with that. There's so many times where I feel like I'm done. I'm shutting it down. And then all of a sudden it's like that actually meant like I'm shutting it down about like some things that I just considered very important. And then all of a sudden I started thinking about things about other people. And I was like, that is far more important. And all of a sudden my awareness was outward and not so much inward, or just like at like dumb, trivial things that I was like, working through.
Hmm. It's so easy. I mean, it's like that balance, especially with the stuff that, I do as an artist. It's like, I don't do anything important. I'm not going to say art isn't important. Art is important. But like me as a whole, like I could stop doing everything. And some people would be bummed out in a couple weeks, or not even a couple days. People they'd stop noticing. And that's normal. That's totally fine. It's like, I'm not upset by that, but it's just a matter of, okay, so if I know this is a reality, but the reason why I continue to do this stuff is just because I genuinely want to do it. I need to put time into things that I genuinely want to do. Kind of how we mentioned before about like you get an idea for something and you just do it. Like that's the stuff that I have to put energy into, the stuff that I don't even think twice about why I'm doing this. And if
Right.
I, yeah,
And
and if I,
that reestablishes the concept of like selfishness as it pertains to happiness. Like if you want to do it, obviously that's a selfish feeling, but like sometimes that like honestly everything that we do is selfish. Even just
totally.
like what we're attracted to is somewhat selfish. It's preference.
Yeah, no, I think that there's this, I don't know why everybody thinks that we're more than like animals. And I don't know why people kind of disregard like human behavior and the very, very obvious things, the very dumb, stupid things that we all do just because we're fucking animals. There's just stuff that's baked into us that we can't really control. I mean, you do your best to tame things down, but when it comes to just simple things, like, yeah, of course we're selfish at times, or we get angry and we get jealous, and like all this whole thing of human emotion. Like it's okay to have those emotions. It's totally normal. Everybody else has them too. So it's just it kind of, for me personally at least, it goes back into the whole ego thing, and remembering like the world does not revolve around you, dog. Like you're just one other person. Just focus on, don't think that like, oh, like because your song only got a couple hundred plays on Spotify, it doesn't mean you're any less of a person. It's just like whatever. Like there's so many other factors in the world and things to worry about.
Yeah. Sometimes I wish that people saw like that specific example. Like you have to get better at what you do. So like, and obviously everything outside of you gets to dictate what's good. Like, of course you like it, you created it. Like it means something to you. It matters to you. You put time into it. But like everybody else gets to dictate like what quality is at the moment. And truly it's just practice. Like once you put it out and say it doesn't do what your goal was for it to do, as far as like the amount of ears that it reached, the amount of plays that you got, like, well, guess what, you get to do it again,
Yeah.
and you get to do it better.
Yeah, and the other thing too is it's so not normal, everything that we do as creatives. It's not fucking normal to have a podcast. It's not normal to have a band. It's not normal to own a restaurant or something. Like it can feel normal to maybe people like us because we're in this world and everybody that we know is a creative person. So it's like, oh, everybody's in a band. It's like, no, everybody isn't in a band. We're
Right.
friends with like a vast minority of psychopaths that are trying to do this really, really crazy thing. It's like we're all trying to climb Everest in a way. And it's like everybody can't do it, but the fun is more in the journey and not necessarily the destination. And it's again, it's that ego thing, and people just losing sight of like what they are. I mean, granted, shoot for the stars. Don't I'm not trying to say like you don't, like, your work doesn't mean anything and like you're never going to make it, you don't have a chance, so why bother? That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying, like, if you can live with that sort of positive thought in your head, but like keep the negative stuff out, the kind of like the you don't matter stuff, the nobody gives a shit about what you're doing stuff. It's like, I mean, sure, a lot of people probably don't care, but that's totally normal because everybody else is focused on themselves. The only person that has to care about what you're doing is yourself. And that's the energy that will attract other people to what you're doing.
I mean, I don't know if I even need to expand on that. I think that's perfect. And it actually kind of, we're talking about like productivity and mindsets and everything like that. So I think this transitions pretty well into it's not okay, or it's okay to not be productive.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you're just saying it on the record now, clearly you've felt this way for a while.
Yeah, totally. I think that whenever the pandemic thing started happening, all of my creative friends on Facebook, I was seeing a lot of two things. I was seeing people posting things discussing how they're having a hard time being creative right now. And it's like, you can't force creativity. Or people that were just like going on live stream every other hour for no good reason. And I mean, do what you want to do with your time. You could be as negative or as positive or as self masturbatory as you want online. That's what the internet's for, I suppose. But I just kind of wanted to put it out there that like, yo, like, it's totally okay and normal to not be productive. Just because you have all of this extra free time now doesn't mean that like your brain is gonna catch up with that. It's not like you've like, you know, like you've been deposited all of these creativity dollars into your bank account. You know, it's your mental bank account, I should say. So just like chill out, because like it's really it's almost impossible to force yourself to like sit down and do anything unless you have some sort of like a positive drive. Like there's those days where like maybe I'm at work all day and I have an idea for a song or an idea for a piece of art or something, and like I'm thinking about it all day and it's like, I have to do this, I gotta do this, I got this thing, and then I get home and I do it and it's the best. But if you don't have any ideas but you're like trying to force yourself to come up with something, it's just like you're normal. You don't have anything creative to do right now. That's your brain's working normally. But most people aren't operating on this I have to do 10,000 fucking things all the time sort of mindset. So just pump the brakes and I don't know, relax. But I can definitely understand how hard it is to relax and how easy it is to feel worthless when, you know, you're on your social media platform of choice talking about how you can't be productive and you're surrounded by everybody else's productive posts. It's real easy to beat yourself up like in that environment.
But I thought it was interesting because your title, I thought it was like a little bit of a twist on like a deeper meaning and deeper message, because you kind of go into then how you can be productive. That's not exactly the way that they were like trying to focus on. Like it was more like you don't need to keep busy, be truly productive, but your productivity doesn't necessarily define you.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's other ways I think to be air quote productive that aren't necessarily creative, but that can help foster creativity.
Creativity.
I think in that video I talked about like how environment is a really important thing. You know, if you can't come up with anything, but like maybe you're just having a hard time because like the house is a mess and you don't have anywhere comfortable to work, clean up. I know a lot of people don't like cleaning the house, but if you're working towards something to help foster a creative environment, you got to work towards it. And you never know. Sometimes you might get inspired by something really wacky. Like maybe you'll be cleaning the house and then you'll find a photo from your childhood and it'll trigger some memory, and then you'll write a great song about your uncle. Who knows? Like inspiration can be around you in these weird ways. So that's what I was trying to say with that.
Yeah, well, I want to touch on some of the themes that you hit, but you went into the creative space thing, and so I wanted to ask you about that anyway, so I might as well do it now. I've asked you before how you keep so many like spinning plates balanced creatively. What you said back to me way back when has stuck with me ever since. But so what is it about the spaces you work in that helps you be creative?
Everything is set up accordingly to what needs done. I think that, like right now with my pandemic space, I have this room. There's a lot more stuff going on in this room than normal. But, it's just having, an environment where, I can open the blinds and the windows. I can get some sunlight. I got a table where I can draw that's right next to my record player. So I could put on some records, listen to some music. The fridge isn't too far away if I need one of these. Uh, and it's like just a quiet, calm space. I have a wall right here that's actually pretty much everything on this wall, with the exception of like an Aladdin poster, is art that my friends made. So it's kind of like a cool sort of like your friend's art is always around you.
It'd
I
be
thought that
awesome if
was
you
a
knew who
nice
made that Aladdin poster.
it's a nice thing to kind of just have in the studio. It's just little inspiration and trinkets like that. Just yeah, that, and like, again, I have my whole record collection on the other side over here, and I guess in a way that's kind of inspiring just because I am a music person, and it's nice to, see a collection of the things that inspired me, the music that I grew up with. I also have some Ninja Turtles back there because, stay young, bro. Stay
Right,
young.
right. I mean, it's I like how you pointed all of that out, and how you've created a space that both fosters like utility and creativity. So I'm in basically my studio right now, which is also my office. I have this wraparound desk. I'm on a laptop right now, but I have like an extra wide monitor right here. I have another laptop behind me, another monitor. I have a photo tent over there because I'm getting into photography, and I have a
Yeah.
camera. And you know, I've but I never really used this room for anything, because whenever back in the long ago, uh, I'd come home from work and I was just like, I don't want to sit in an office right now. And
Mm,
I would, grab my laptop, go sit on the couch, throw something on TV. I'd still do some work or whatever, but I just do it from over there and not here. But, now that I'm kind of in a position where I'm working from home, and I'm I'm sitting in here all day, I'm realizing like I'm glad I put the effort into putting this together, because it works. Now
yeah.
that I'm in it and I'm like working in it, and it's like once my work day is over, I don't leave here, and I kind of love it. Like I'm comfortable here. I'm getting things done. It's creating, like I'm a creative person in this spot. And I was like, damn, I'm so glad, even though I was like letting it basically look like it was like that dining room where like no one was allowed to walk in, or like sit or eat dinner. It's just like a room in the house that no one's allowed to use. It was
Yeah.
kind of what this was. It was just a room you walked by to get to the bathroom. Um, but now it's like this powerhouse room, and I'm like super, super stoked, you know, that it was like sitting there waiting for me.
Yeah. I had a somewhat of a similar thing, just because with me not going to the office now, and I gave up the podcast studio. I decided I took it away. I'm being more mindful of my finances moving forward. And I'm gonna probably get another space, but who knows when or where, because of everything that's going on. And as a result, I'm at home a lot more. And it's nice to actually spend time in the place that most of my finances go into. and it's cool to actually be able to, like, record a podcast remotely, even though it does feel a little disconnected. If you have a good connection, it feels pretty authentic. Like, this doesn't feel too weird to me now. But once I'm
Yeah.
done with this, like, I could close the laptop and I could go shit in my own toilet and open a beer out of my own fridge and put on whatever record I want. It's not like this whole rigmarole where it's like, oh, well, maybe I'll go down to X bar, or maybe I gotta fucking, sit in the car for 20 minutes to get home. It's like, I'm here. This is where I'm putting a lot of money and time into this place anyways. And now I actually get to use it. So that's pretty cool. And just like,
Literally getting your money's worth.
yeah. Actually just getting to engage with things that you've, put time and energy into over, however many years in the past that have just been sitting around. It's like, okay, cool. Now I actually get to use this space. So it's nice.
Right on. Well, to not get too far away, and actually what we talked about was kind of a tangent, but it does fit a lot of the themes that come out of it's okay not to be productive. Um, like one of them, one of the ones that I pulled was reevaluate your priorities, being future minded, and set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
Which I also see as like, don't just be reactionary to life. Like every now and then, or not even every now and then, as often as you can be the force that makes life react to you. Not in a
Sure.
negative way, but like if you're constantly reacting, you can't possibly be the master of your own fate.
Yeah. And I think that even on like a smaller scale, there's this whole, like, there's a lot of people that are struggling right now just with everything that's going on financially. And, outside of the creative thing, it's like, okay, like, I'm an adult and I feel like I need to be in a position where if something like this happens, I need to be okay. And I know that for a lot of people that are artists, that it's, it's kind of the standard to be like broke or the starving artist. And it's like, why? Like, why are we romanticizing that?
Oh,
So luckily over the past year, I had already started being a lot more conscious about like finances and where I was putting my money, and being like very like, I don't need to do this. I don't need that. Let's save this. Let's stop doing that. So whenever all of this happened, I like lucked out that I was in a position where like, okay, like, I'm going to be okay. And I feel so fucking bad. Like, my heart really goes out to everybody that I've seen online that has been having a hard time, whether it's, just an individual person or a business. I know there's a ton that's going on. A lot of people need a lot of help, but I do think moving forward, I hope that it's a wake up call for a lot of people where it's like, okay, well, how about let's stop going out to the bar every night. Let's stop buying clothes that we don't need. Let's stop doing this shit. Let's work on saving money. So whenever something like this happens again, hopefully it doesn't, but just, it's okay to have like money. It's okay to have savings, and
yeah.
it's okay
To
to
be prepared.
it's okay to be an adult.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that it's, I don't know why it was so taboo. I think it's just like you grow up and operate around a bunch of like punks and adolescent people that never grew up, and then you start feeling dirty for having money. But now it's like, fuck it, like, I worked for this shit, I worked for this life, like, let me have it.
uh Well, not to sound contradictory to literally exactly what we were just saying, but you were saying it in a much different way. Don't just do certain things because you see other people are doing them.
Yeah.
And I find that so unbelievably important. And it kind of blows my mind that like we still need to remind people that like social media is just like people's highlight reels. And if people are like, say, like, the people that you're talking about who probably post often, something pretty cool because they're creative, and then all of a sudden they run into a wall, and then they see somebody who doesn't post very often, and they did something, whether had utility or it was cool or whatever. Like, Well, they're not posting more because they don't have more to post. You know, like
Sure.
that was it. That was the wad. They blew it right there. You know, so
Yeah.
like you don't have to be like welled up with like some sort of a weird jealousy that like that wasn't your post. That's all they have. You'll have more later. That's the best
I
that they could come up with.
I had a I had a really on the podcast I was talking with someone about something similar to this, and we were talking about um social media and being really consistent about when you're posting things. And I was telling her about, I guess she had brought up how her manager or whatever gets on her about not posting enough when she's in the studio. And the point that I had brought up to her was like, anytime I see somebody make one of those like studio posts, I'm just like, oh, they're not working. You're not doing anything. Because anytime I'm in the studio, I don't even think typically about my phone because I'm working. Like I'm just like lost in it. And then, 2 hours later, I'm like, oh shit, we should have got video of the drum taking or the drum tracking or, me doing vocals or something. But like every once in a while, I will think of it and I'll do something. But there are people that like, they're very like every day they're posting stuff. And it's just like, how much are you getting done? I feel like if I'm seeing more snippets of stuff that you do over like actual finished product, then that's a problem. Like
Yeah,
there needs to
and
be like some sort of a balance.
for sure. And obviously like my response to that manager would be then get me a social media manager. Like what do you want me to record this record or do you want me to post online? Because
Sure.
they're like one like why post online if I can't finish this goddamn record?
Yeah.
You know what I
It's
mean?
I think that there's just this I think that we've created our own problem as artists and maybe as businesses, everybody in terms of the social media. I think the reasons why we're dealing with so much throttling and algorithms and not being able to see everybody's post is because everybody feels like they have to post everything all the time. And the servers that these companies have can only handle so much. They have to start throttling it. But I feel like if everybody just posted less, I know it's never going to happen. It's a big ask. But if everybody posted less, if everybody only posted the stuff that mattered, we would actually see a lot more. A less is more approach would really work with social media. Just post the stuff that matters, post less of it, and then you're not going to put such a strain on everything, on the whole system. But hey, that's what the fuck do I know?
Yeah, it's funny. I can hear everybody that's like watching this right now being like, everything I post matters. Like that's why I post it. But if you would make them like show them their last 20 posts and be like, tell me which one matters.
Sure. But again, that's the other thing too, is like a lot of people use social media for different reasons. A lot of people that post stuff all the time, it's more of like, they're keeping a scrapbook or like you mentioned before with my 1 minute videos, like a diary. And everybody has their own different way of doing things. So it's like you can't put yourself out there as like, oh, I know it all and this is what everybody should be doing. And if they don't do it this way, they're wrong. It's just it's just, all you can really do is control what you do. And I feel like I'm somebody that still posts quite a lot of content. So I try to like, I feel like I'm walking the line of being a hypocrite sometimes, but uh, I at least try to diversify the stuff that I'm putting out and at least put out stuff of quality, but also I'm definitely not above taking a picture of a good looking slice of pizza and posting it as well, because I feel like, that's some normal shit. And that's stuff that, people, I like to share normal things with people. It's
Everybody can
just,
relate to a great
yeah,
slice of pizza.
it's, there's no right or wrong answers. I think that it's just finding what works for you and what feels good. I feel like if you're using these tools, it should be fun. You should be connecting with people that you care about, and you should be using it to, spread important things. If not positivity exclusively, I understand the world isn't positive, and there are some things that need to be shared, that need to be highlighted, that are anything but positive. But, do it in a way where like you can actually maybe elicit some change or influence towards positivity, even if you are highlighting some of the negative. but that's a whole nother can of worms, dog.
Yeah, but it's not like that's so insane how it segues so perfectly into this. The last really big theme of that video that you posted was reinforcing positive change based on what makes you happy and what direction you want to see your life go in. Like, to me, also, this circles back to the theme of exploring selfishness as it pertains to happiness, but like,
Yeah.
Reinforcing positive change in yourself has been something I have always tried to push it, but like I hate what I have hated the most in all of this is the amount of times I've heard people say, I would do this if I just had the time. And it's not like I would travel or I would whatever. It's like I would go running or I would get in shape or I would, whatever, paint my house, clean my bathroom, do whatever. And
Yeah.
they didn't do that. They didn't start it, or they tried it and then they were like, this is hard, I'm not going to do it. Or they just didn't do it and then they were like, I'm bored. And I was like, God, like there's so much you can do to better yourself. Like everybody has an opportunity right now to be better on the other side of this. Like I wasn't mad at them for saying that they were bored. I was genuinely bummed out for them.
I think that one of the more negative things that I've kind of discovered over the years of doing the podcast and talking to everybody, and I think just being in the creative world and knowing everybody that I've known, is that there are some people that like just don't have it, and it sounds really, really shitty. So I'm trying to like say this as kindly as possible, but like everybody has the ability to create. If you really want to do something, you'll get it done. We were talking about that feeling before. But I feel like there are some people that just say they want to be a guitar player. They want to do this, but like if they don't have the drive to actually get off their ass and create something, then it's like you really don't. But to challenge yourself and to ask yourself those questions is something that a lot of people don't want to do. So then they get stuck in this feedback loop of being like, well, I would do this if only I could make this happen. Or if I could make that happen. It's just like a constant set of excuses for why they can't get a thing to happen. And it's like, okay, it's one thing if we're talking about like, oh, I want to travel the world and I want to, surf in Japan and things like that. Okay. It's like, okay, well, that's some like crazy stuff, but it requires a lot of, if you want to do that, okay, well, get a job that pays good, save up money, and you can make it happen. And if you're not willing to get the job and you're not, what's the word that I'm looking for? Controlled,
Disciplined.
Thank you. Disciplined enough to save the money to work towards your goals, then you really didn't want it.
Not to mention, there's some research that you can't just show up into Japan and be like, all right, I'm ready. And you can be
Sure.
like, no. You got to know who to go to, where to go.
That's the thing is like nothing just happens. So if whatever you want to do, there's going to be a serious, like, I feel like it's pretty common for no matter what it is that you want to do, whether it is be a songwriter or be a surfer or own a restaurant or start, a fucking vaudeville. I don't know. Whatever you want to do, there's going to be more things that you don't want to do to make it happen than stuff that you're actually going to want to do. Like you're going to spend so much more time doing stuff that you don't want to do. And if you're not willing to do those things, then I just feel like you just don't really want it. And
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that are just trying to put the cart ahead of the horse. Like they love the idea of the final result, but like some of my favorite things, like I kind of love that this podcast era exists because like you get this raw version of like all the shit all these famous people and like all these like superstars in whatever genre they're in, whether they're like a sports star or they're like somehow became like a famous mathematician or whatever. Like they ate so much shit to get where they are so that you could then marvel at whatever they're putting out on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, like I love that. I love hearing that they had to go through a process and it wasn't something that they were just born into, or it wasn't something that was just given to them. And I wonder if that's just perspective that people are missing, where like they start to attempt to do it and they're like, man, this is difficult. And then they just don't want to do it based on that. Like they still love the idea of the end result, but like they just, it's kind of like they know the cheese has like the electric charge on it and they're
Yeah,
not
dude,
willing to like figure out how to rip the wire off.
dude, I think it's just like you gotta be very self-aware and very realistic with yourself about, how bad do you really want something? Like, dude, I got a fucking beer gut tire belly that I wish I didn't have. It would be great if I didn't have it. I got a whole medley of t-shirts that I can't even fucking wear anymore. They don't fucking fit me. I've grown out of them. But, I could work out, I could exercise, I could eat better. It would be great. I love the end result of not having to deal with that. But I know for a fact that I could not give a shit less about the steps that I need to take. So I just have to accept that even though I would like that, the only way I'm going to get it is if I do some shit that I don't want to do, but I don't want to do it. So I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go onto my social media platform of choice and make a post like, I wish I was skinnier, or why is it so hard to lose weight? Or, why is it so hard to exercise? I'm not going to do that because it's not hard to do those things. I just don't want to do them. And that goes for like somebody that maybe wants to get into recording music. It's like, it's not hard to record music. It's just like, okay, sure, maybe you got to save up money. You got to get a good computer. You got to learn how to do this stuff. But if you actually care, you will exercise towards it in a way. You know what I mean? You'll lose that weight and you'll be a nice slim recording machine. But if you don't want to do that, then you don't want to be a producer. Much in the same way that like, I just don't want to be skinny. I have to accept that.
Right. Well, I mean, but to that point, I feel like I need to say this too. Like, I'm going to look at the camera when I say this. Like, people, like, give yourself the permission from time to time to absolutely do nothing. Like, that is totally allowed. It's totally allowed. I think that definitely goes along with the soul of what you were saying before. Like, you don't always need to be productive. Like, yeah, sometimes the thing that feeds your production is not doing anything.
One of the best things that I've done for at least musically, and I guess with some of my visual arts as well, is I work on things in chunks. So like earlier today, I recorded vocals for a new SIKES track, and I did some light mixing on it, and then I closed the project, and I'm not going to open it for probably 2 or 3 days. I could open it again tonight. I could work on it. I could work on it tomorrow. I don't have any plans. But that time away from it is actually going to give me a clearer perspective when I do open it. I need to completely forget what I recorded, completely forget what it sounded like, and just listen to it like eyes closed, don't look at the screen, and then I could figure out the changes that I actually have to make. I find that sometimes if you're working on something, like just 24/7 and not giving yourself that break to do nothing, to like clear your palate, you know what I mean? There's no way for you to actually have any sort of control or know if what you're doing is good or the thing that you actually like, because you're too in it. You're like in the fucking sauce.
Oversaturated.
Yeah, it's too much. So I have to like intentionally separate myself from things now. And I find that while it feels like it's taking longer, things actually end up getting done quicker. Because instead of me spending 2 or 3 days lost in a mix that I can't figure out, I just step away from it for 2 or 3 days. I listen to it with fresh ears, and I'm like, oh, that needs to go up, that needs to go down, and now it's done.
Well, so that it's funny that you're kind of talking about this now, because these segues are just kind of popping up. It's kind of amazing. I want to, just because of what we were just going over, let's jump into your most recent video. Just Say No to Yourself. That's your most recent one, right? I actually have that one right as far as the order.
Yeah, no. Look, dude, I think those first two got posted really close to each other, so I wouldn't We'll call. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Anyway.
But there's just so much in it that you nail. And again, I love that you attack this topic while we're in situations where we have like an abnormal amount of time. So in relation to the last video we touched on, were you finding a lot of the things you were involved in was more keeping busy and filling time, but just trying to disguise itself as productivity? Was that kind of like something that influenced that video?
I would say in the past it has happened, and usually I'm feeling pretty okay now personally with the way my personal life is going. I think a lot of the videos that I've done have been more of a reflection of things that I've seen my friends post online. And instead of being someone that's going to like get into the comments thread and try to like get all my thoughts out, you know, on a post that someone's going to half read,
Yeah.
I've decided to kind of just like take like whatever I see to be a common trend happening amongst my peer group and then make a video about that. So, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's more just me seeing people just feeling like a lot of the posts I'm seeing from my friends in the creative world, just being very just create like I just feel like they need to take a break. Just pump the brakes.
Well, in the sense of taking a break and like only having so much to give, I'm really into the concept you laid out, um, of us only having 100% of ourselves to give.
Mm,
Uh, and the more things you divide your focus into, the less you're able to give yourself completely to any one thing without neglecting your other commitments.
yeah.
Um, so are you finding new ways to adjust your workflows so that you don't have to cut so many things out? Like maybe you're just finding ways to work smarter now?
Yeah, I mean, for a while, I think I mentioned it a little bit before, but I intentionally split up things into days. So now I have, Monday is my adult get shit done day. Tuesday is a Sykes day. Wednesday is a Gray Walker day. Thursday is another project that nobody even knows about yet. So like there's just like I just focus everything on specific days, and it makes it easier now too. Like when I mentioned I recorded those like some Sykes vocals today, and I won't go back to them for a couple of days. That's because I mean it's easy for me because I already have stuff that's going to keep my brain working the next couple of days, and then I'll sit back down on the next Sykes block and I'll just work on it. It's just like a crazy schedule is the short answer. I just schedule everything out. I also try to like limit myself how much I'm working on stuff, which is a little psychotic. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but maybe it may be worth trying if somebody has a lot of stuff going on. Like, it's like, okay, I have, these 6 hours to do stuff before it's 11:30 and I should lay down. Right. So, and I have, 5 things that I want to do. It's like, again, it goes back to that 100% thing. It's like thinking about like, what is important to me? How much time do I want to put stuff into this? And just like, keep an eye on the time. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I said I was going to work until 8:45 on this thing, so I'm stopping right now. But just being aware of those things loosely, keeping an eye on the time and how much stuff you want to get done. And just try to, if you find something's taking you longer to do than you want it to, approaching it in the future in a way that's going to be quicker. Like fuck, if editing a podcast is taking me, an hour, 2 hours to like get all the video and the stuff together, it's like, okay, maybe I don't need 3 camera angles. Maybe we could do 2 in the future so I'm not editing so much. Cut things like just like find those little things so you can get done what you need to get done in the time frame that you realistically have. There's always a ton of compromise that needs to be made when it comes to anything that you're doing. So that's another thing that I definitely recommend to anyone, whether you're a creative person or not, but just definitely becoming friends with the idea of compromise, because everything's not going to go your way ever. There's going to be stuff that you don't want to do, and the stuff that you do want to do is not going to go the way that you want it to go. So you have to be ready for that and be good at problem solving and shifting gears.
Yeah, and like to kind of piggyback off of your podcast example and the editing, like obviously the only version I've done of this has been through Zoom, and this is not the most attractive layout as it is natively. So, you know, I have it laid out in a whole different way, the way that I post it online. That takes that the first time around, that took a little bit of time. And then I don't exactly have the newest like computer out there. So rendering the video then takes a bunch of time too on
Yeah.
top of that. So I'm like doing things in a way that I can kind of set it and let it. Then the next time that I sit down at the computer, I just want to be able to drop the video in. Like I've created the templates. So I'm just dropping the video in, and I just need to
Yeah.
go in and make the front and end cut. And I'm pretty good. Other than
Yeah.
that, you know, we've been trying to keep these pretty uncut as far as, you know, I just don't really want to edit. I want people to, you know, a lot of what we've been showing is just like people are at home, you know, that's like the lives we're living. And I kind of just, that's pretty raw in and of itself. And I
Hmm.
want all of it to be raw. So like,
Yeah. It's one of those things, like, I think as a creative person, it's really easy when you're in the position of editing your own work. It's really easy to be laser focused on the imperfections, but nobody is ever going to listen to your stuff with the amount of attention that you do. It's never going to happen. So there was a long time where, like, I would be doing podcasts and I would be focused on, like, editing out parts of the conversation that didn't maybe flow, or if somebody was not a great speaker, I would try to edit some of the pauses or weird stuff. And it was just taking so much time. So I eventually said, fuck it. I'm just going to start uploading stuff unedited, one camera. And if what's nobody ever said anything, because nobody's paying attention at the level I am. So it's like, why am I doing all this extra work? It's like, sure, I can do the 3 cameras, super edited, really well polished stuff, but it's getting the same amount of traction and attention, and nobody likes it any more or less. I'm just giving myself, I'm just putting more work on myself. So it's like, that was something that I definitely cut out and had to work on. And it led me to being able to do what I was doing with uploading 3 podcasts a week, because it was like, okay, I have the video, I got the audio, sync them up, export it, upload it. I had my template in Premiere that had the thing on the beginning and the thing on the end. So it was you're able to do it super quick. All my,
right.
all my plugin settings, all my channel chain for the audio, I'm recording every single episode the same way. So you're able to, like, really streamline it once you get it going.
Yeah, and I mean, process is so damn important, so damn important. Well, I guess so. Like, my to summarize my feelings on what you've been doing, through your 1 minute or less videos. Like, I see it as you, whether or not you see it this way. I feel like I'm watching you, document a very macro self audit, because I don't think the things that you obviously aren't saying things that you wouldn't put into practice.
Yeah.
So like and I'm such a big, like, I do like sit down and like look at myself and see what I'm doing. What can I be doing better? Where am I wasting? Where am I excelling? How can I double down in that aspect? Like I love kind of seeing that macro self audit of someone else, because I've been loving what you've been saying. Like, I'm a huge fan of seeing how focused you are, to create positive changes, encouraging others to do the same. Like, I couldn't be a bigger advocate of like using this time for refocusing on the long game instead of repeatedly getting caught up in short wins and spreading yourself thin. Basically just making sure the battles we fight contribute to the goal of winning the war. Like, I
Yeah.
just feel like that was everything that everything that was coming out from like your very from the heart, 1 minute or less videos was hitting that so strong. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because I think it's a great conversation to have, and I wanted to go deeper. I loved that you put that out there in such a short form, but why not go deep?
Hey, I appreciate you asking me to do it, dude. Honestly.
Well, you are welcome. And I know this has been kind of long. I don't even know how long we've gone, but we're close to wrapping. So there's
Okay, cool.
the light at the end of the tunnel is large. But now that we have a pretty nice look under the hood of what's going through your mind, I think we're pretty solid on knowing what your answer is. But like, how are you as a human being? Like, how have you been holding up through all of this?
I'm good. You know, I was thinking about how there was a lot of stuff that didn't happen, that was supposed to happen, that, oh, it's a bummer. Like, things get canceled, things get moved. But there's been things that have not happened that I was happy they didn't happen. I don't think I'm alone in that. I think there's a lot of stuff that got canceled or shifted or things that have been taken out of our lives as a result of this. And to some degree, some of that stuff makes us happy. So moving forward, it's okay. It's like, well, nobody was forcing us to do some of this stuff. So how about we say yes less to shows that we don't really give a shit about, or say less yes to helping people that we don't really, that we just don't have the time or the mental energy to really do whatever it is. So
Or
I've
that
been
you
holding up
genuinely
good.
aren't interested in?
Yeah, no, it's like, dude, I've been holding up good. I'm keeping myself busy. Really trying to focus on some long-term stuff right now, and at the same time just working on music, working on videos, podcasts, and yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to getting back to, things being a little bit more normal, just because I'm like exhausted, like with like it it was bad enough thinking that it's bad enough living in a world where every person around me thought that they were like the best artist in the planet. But now I have to deal with people thinking they're the best artist and a fucking scientist at the same time. And it is exhausting. So like, I'll be happy just to go back to people thinking that they're all fucking Bob Dylan.
Yeah, not to mention a looming election too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Let's not even get into that. But
Right.
yeah, dude, I'm fine though, man. You good?
Yeah, yeah. It's had its moments. Like I think I had like my first like anxiety attack, but it was really like I had been I was just doing the things that I don't do, like I was staying up late even though I'm still working, so I
Okay.
was, just because I'm able to work at home doesn't mean I can stay up till 2 a.m. whenever I need to start working at 7,
Yeah.
and so I wasn't sleeping. And then like, I just, all of a sudden I like started not feeling well. I'm at home. Uh, I love to drink. So I was drinking more than I should have been. And it's again, like I would never have those, like, I might have like something with dinner, but I would never have like those couple extra after, that would be like my one for the night, or like one or two for the night, and then I'd be done. But I was like just drinking like I was, on a weekend. And I just realized I was adapting or adopting a lot of terrible habits.
Yeah.
And what it really was is that I just didn't feel well. I needed a good night's sleep. I needed a lot more water. Like I needed to hydrate, so then I made it a point one night to like go to bed super early. Like I just slugged water all day. I had, a couple glasses of water next to my bed. And the next day I woke up, and I described it on here before as just like, it felt like a cartoon where like the world like all of a sudden is playing music behind you, and like the
Yeah.
animals are following you and shit. Like
Uh-huh.
I felt really, really good. And I was like, this is what I need to be doing. I can't let, like, just because like people don't have eyes on me 24/7, or like I don't have to prove that like I'm tip top walking into work, that like I can slack off on being healthy for me. So that was a great lesson. But yeah, in general, like I started doing this. I've been loving this. Like these conversations. I've always loved having a good conversation. But like it's kind of nice to not have like a giant party around you too, so that you can kind
Yeah.
of have that like focused one-on-one. You can get real deep. You can go on a tangent, but then bring it back. Like there's, yeah, I mean, but for the most part, I've been great. I found out that I absolutely love working at home. I hate going to the office. I realize I absolutely hate it. I've never liked driving. So like my 25-minute commute that I do to work, I hate that even more. I dread
Yeah.
going back to work.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how a lot of businesses move forward, knowing that they don't need to maybe be renting out a huge office building somewhere, and then all these office buildings will go for sale, and nobody will want to buy them, and then we could just turn them all into fucking venues and art spaces.
Count me in. Count me in.
So yeah, that's my long-term hopes and dreams right there. But yeah, dude.
Yeah, but yeah. So, well, I'm glad things are going well on your end, and things are definitely fine for me. It's been a minute since I've had like a good hug.
Okay.
I'm by
Yeah.
myself. Like I have my dog,
Sure.
and that's good. So I have like, I'm touching something that's alive. But like, man, it'll be nice to like hug somebody and not be like, is this bad for me?
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. I'm very much in the without being too controversial. I'm very much in the things are fine camp. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear
Like
you
I
because
get it. I get it. I get it. I'm not ignorant, but I'm also
yeah,
like, all right, come on, let's fucking
it's
let's go.
it's cautious but not hysterical.
Yeah,
You know,
totally,
like
totally. That's a good way of putting it. That's a really good way of putting it.
um, yeah. So you for sure, I know, are watching the internet, are seeing people use social media for some pretty remarkable and selfless things on top of the nonsense that we see as well. Uh, is there anyone in particular standing out to you that you want to tell people to check out?
Unfortunately, I just can't answer that question. I've been pretty distant. I've been socially distant on social media,
Huh?
if you want to put it that way. I will post things and I'll interact with people that respond to the stuff that I post, but I really haven't been scrolling timelines or anything like that. So I unfortunately can't make any sort of a suggestion for anything as to what anybody's doing
Hey,
online. I have no
you're
idea.
practicing what you preach. It's a time suck. You're getting a lot done.
Yeah.
These are things we've talked about. It would almost be a red mark on your ledger if you had an answer for this.
Yeah.
Um, but so the main goal for us when we started this was always, just a little bit more connection while we're all distancing. So before we bring this to a close,
Okay.
is there anything you want to ask the people watching? It can be literally anything, like silly, really serious, Netflix recommendations.
Um, for anybody that is still watching and or listening this, I just want to ask you, if you're doing something today that is making you happy. Are you working towards a better you today? If not, figure out a way to do that.
I like it. All right. So if you're watching, tell us in the comments if you are doing anything that's making you a better you. And if not, feel shame. Don't feel
No, don't
shame.
don't feel shame.
I'm joking.
Don't. These people are fragile, man. You gotta be kind. Empathy.
Hey, I feel like we've given a lot today. I feel
Sure.
like we've been very supportive for everybody
Yeah,
today.
it's like it's empathy, but if you can't take a joke, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's got
Yeah,
to be room for comedy.
sure.
Um, and lastly, tell the people all the places they can reach you, your
Yeah,
website, social media, all the things.
sure. So the easiest way to get a hold of me is actually I have a website that is www.therealsikes.com. That's SIKES.com. And that will link you to my music. That will link you to my bands. That will link you to my podcast. That will link you to my art. That'll link you to the vlogs. Everything is on there. Or if you want to find me, you could just go on whatever social media platform you have and just put in The Real Sykes, and I will come up, except for like TikTok or Snapchat or anything that's for, you know, a not Gen Xer, you know, I just don't have the I just don't get it. It's just not for me. So yeah, any dad, any old man social media, you will find me on.
All right. So legacy social media. I can't
Yeah.
believe there's like eras of social media now.
Yeah, totally.
All right, man. Well, thanks for doing this. This was better than I could have possibly imagined or asked for. I was hoping for something like this, but
You're
who
super welcome,
the
man.
hell knew if like this was going to turn out the way that it did? But I just think it couldn't have gone possibly any better. And I
Dude,
really appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. And like, honestly, I hope to see you on stage soon.
yeah, man. Well, maybe in August, if Millville Music Fest actually happens, we'll be there. So yeah, maybe I'll see you there. I hope so, man.
Right on. Well, cheers, my friend.
Cheers, dude. Have a good weekend.
You too.
All right. Take care, man. I'm out.